I sat in my tractor behind the pilot in Ridgefield at 1:12 in the morning, watching the fuel gauge sit at a quarter tank and my phone screen show the same balance it had shown for 3 days, $1,247. The engine idled rough under me. I'd been meaning to get the injectors cleaned, but that cost money too. The payment app didn't change when you stared at it, I knew that. Still checked it twice more anyway. My last load had delivered 4 days ago. Pallets of bottled water down to a distribution center in Eugene. The broker said payment would process in 48 hours. That was 96 hours ago now. I'd called twice. Got voicemail both times. The pilot lot was maybe a third full. Couple rows of sleepers, their running lights on, APUs humming. I'd shut mine off around midnight to save fuel. It wasn't cold enough to need it yet. October in southwest Washington. Wet but not freezing. I had enough diesel to maybe make it to Portland if I didn't hit traffic. Probably. The fuel card Ashlyn and I used to share was maxed. My personal card had been declined at the pump an hour ago. I'd tried it twice just to be sure, standing there in the fluorescent wash with some kid in a Honda waiting behind me. That was fun. I switched apps, checked my texts. Ashlyn had sent 4 screenshots since dinner, all past due notices, 1 from Seattle Children's Billing Department, 2 from the cardiology clinic, 1 from the anesthesia group, which apparently billed separate. The last text just said, "They need the deposit by Friday, or they reschedule." Today was Wednesday. Technically Thursday now. The deposit was $8,000. The surgery was in 12 days. Ricky's mitral valve wasn't going to fix itself, and the cardiologist had been real clear about the window. Kids grew fast. Wait too long and the repair got harder. I'd explained to Ashlyn that I was waiting on payments. She'd sent back a screenshot of our divorce decree with the child support section highlighted, which wasn't the point. I wasn't trying to dodge support. I just didn't have it yet. She didn't care about yet. She cared about Friday. I closed the texts and opened the load board. I'd been refreshing it every 20 minutes for the past 3 hours. A lot of the same stuff. Partial loads going east, which didn't help me. A reefer run to Yakima that wanted a temp-controlled trailer. I had a dry van. Some Amazon overflow that paid dirt and wanted you there in 6 hours. Nothing I could take that would get cash fast. My phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. I answered. "Yeah." Emmett Simmons? The voice was familiar. Frankie Richards, night dispatcher out of a little outfit in Vancouver. I'd run a couple loads for them last year when things were slow. "That's me. Got a hot load if you're rolling." I straightened a little. "Where to?" "Portland. Pick up in Woodland, drop in northwest Portland by 0700. Clean run, straight shot, pays $2,000 cash on delivery." 2,000 cash. I felt something loosen in my chest. "What's the freight?" "General cargo, sealed load. Customer wants a solo driver, no teams, and they want it quiet. You take it, you run it, you deliver it, you get paid. Simple." It didn't sound simple. Cash loads usually weren't. "Who's the shipper?" "Private client. They're not listed. It's all arranged on their end. You just need to hook up and drive." I watched a semi roll past on the main road outside the lot, his running lights trailing red. "Bill of lading?" "In the envelope at the trailer. Everything you need's there." I should have asked more. What kind of client paid $2,000 cash for a 3-hour run down I-5? Why they needed it at 7 in the morning? Why they wanted it quiet? But I didn't ask any of that. "I'm in," I said. Frankie gave me the coordinates. Some spot off Highway 503 past Woodland. He said the trailer would be ready and I just needed to hook and go. He said the customer was particular about timing, so don't be late. I said I wouldn't be. He hung up without saying goodbye. That was pretty standard for Frankie. I plugged the coordinates into my GPS and put the truck in gear. The route took me north on I-5, then west off the Woodland exit onto surface streets that got darker the farther I went. My GPS said to turn onto Old Pacific Highway, then onto a service road that didn't have a name, just a gap in the trees with gravel and potholes. I slowed down and made the turn. The road ran under the freeway overpass, then curved through a stretch of woods that pressed in close on both sides. Blackberry vines climbed over everything. I could see chain-link fencing through the brush, half collapsed. Old signs for wire heuser. The coordinates ended at a clearing that might have been a lumberyard once. There was a rusted-out way station shack and a couple of concrete pads where buildings used to sit. Everything else was gravel and weeds. The trailer sat in the middle of the lot. White 53-footer, unmarked. No company name, no dot number, nothing. The paint looked new. The undercarriage was clean, which was weird because everything else in the yard was covered in mud and moss. I stopped the tractor about 20 feet out and left the engine running. High beams on, no other vehicles, no shipper, no yard worker, not a soul around. I sat there for a minute, waiting to see if someone would come out. Nobody did. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down. The air smelled like wet earth and diesel. I could hear the freeway humming a quarter-mile off, but out here it was just wind moving through the trees and my boots on gravel. I walked up to the trailer. The doors were clean. New hinges, fresh dot tape running along the seams. The bolt seal looked legit, intact, numbered, no scratches. I checked the kingpin. No envelope. I walked around the passenger side. Nothing. Then I saw it. Manila envelope taped flat against the front panel just above the landing gear. I pulled it free and tore it open. A key fob fell into my palm. Black plastic, no branding, just a single button. There was a paper inside, too. I unfolded it. Printed, not handwritten. The ink looked fresh. Load instructions: do not break the seal for any reason. Do not open the rear doors. If you hear knocking from inside the trailer, acknowledge once by tapping the wall. Do not speak. Do not open the doors. Stay on I-5. Do not deviate from the route. Deliver to 4th and Gleason, Northwest Portland by 007 show. Contact will meet you at the northwest corner. If stopped by law enforcement, provide only your CDL and registration. Say nothing about the load. You are carrying general cargo, non-hazardous, under private contract. That is all you know. Cash on delivery. Do not discuss this load with anyone. I read it twice. The knocking part stuck with me. That part bugged me a little. I looked back at the trailer. It just sat there, quiet, normal, general cargo, non-hazardous. $2,000. I folded the paper, shoved it and the fob in my jacket pocket, and walked back to the tractor. I stood there next to my tractor for probably 30 seconds, just holding that envelope and thinking this whole thing had to be somebody messing with me. Some kind of elaborate prank. Frankie setting me up for a story he could tell the other dispatchers. Look what this desperate idiot almost did. But my phone still had 0 bars. I checked it twice, pulled it out of my pocket and held it up and turned in a slow circle. Nothing. Not even 1 bar flickering in and out. And that part bugged me a little because I could see the glow of the freeway lights through the trees to the west. Maybe half a mile away tops. I should have had something. Even out here in the middle of nowhere with all the moss and the blackberry vines and the old lumber yard falling apart around me, I should have had at least emergency service. I didn't. That made it feel less like a prank. I don't know why exactly. Just did. I put the phone back in my jacket and looked at the trailer again. It sat there under my high beams, looking completely normal. White paint, clean undercarriage, fresh dot tape on the door seams. The bolt seal still intact with that same number I'd already checked 3 times. Nothing about it screamed danger or illegal or run away right now. But the instructions in my hand said if there's knocking from inside, acknowledge once by tapping the wall. I folded the paper in half and shoved it in my pocket with the key fob. Then I pulled up my recent texts and scrolled back to the screenshots Ashlyn had sent me earlier. 4 of them. Past due medical bills with red letters and balances that made my chest tighten every time I looked at them. The last one was from Seattle Children's Billing Department. $8,000 due by Friday, or they'd reschedule Ricky's surgery. 12 days from now. That's when he was supposed to go in. Mitral valve repair. The cardiologist had explained it to me twice over the phone and once in person, but I still didn't really understand how they were going to fix a valve in a heart the size of my fist. I just knew it had to happen, and I knew $8,000 was the deposit to keep it on the schedule. I pictured Ricky in his hospital bed from the last visit, too small under those white sheets. His face pale and his eyes tired, even though he smiled when I walked in. He'd asked me if I was going to be there when he woke up after surgery. Yeah, I'd told him. I'll be right there. I closed the photos and put my phone away. Then I backed my tractor up to the trailer. Hooking it up took maybe 4 minutes. I've done it 1,000 times. Line up the fifth wheel, back under the kingpin, hear the lock engage, crank the landing gear, connect the airlines and the electrical. I did it all on autopilot while my brain stayed somewhere else. The key fob worked fine. I hit the button, and the landing gear retracted smooth and quiet, hydraulic. Newer system than I'd expected on an unmarked trailer. I did my tug test, pulled forward a few feet to make sure the connection was solid. It was. Then I put it in gear and rolled out of that clearing back onto the service road, with the trees closing in on both sides and the freeway glow getting brighter ahead. The trailer tracked fine. Light. Real light. I've hauled enough loads to know what empty feels like versus loaded, and this thing felt empty. Maybe a few pallets in there. Definitely not a full load. I could feel it in the way the rig moved, how easy the turns were, how little drag there was when I gave it gas. But something felt wrong anyway. It's hard to describe. The weight distribution was off. Not like unbalanced off, where you've got a badly loaded trailer that's going to pull you sideways. More like the weight kept shifting when it shouldn't. Little movements. A slight pull to the left for a few seconds, then it'd settle, then a barely noticeable tug to the right. I checked my mirrors. The trailer looked straight. No sway. No wobble. I kept driving. By the time I got back to Old Pacific Highway, the feeling had faded a little. Maybe I'd imagined it, or maybe whatever was in there had just settled. Cargo does that sometimes if it's not strapped down perfect. Shifts during the first few miles and then finds its spot. I turned north and headed for the I-5 on-ramp. That's when I noticed my dash clock. It said 1:31. I'd been staring at it a second earlier when it said 1:31, and I'd thought to myself I needed to hustle if I was going to make a 7 a.m. delivery to Portland. Now I looked again, and it still said 1:31. I watched it. The numbers didn't change. Then they did. Flipped to 1:32 like nothing had happened. I'm not great with electronics, never have been, but I know how digital clocks work. They don't stutter. They don't loop back on themselves. They just count forward. Mine had hiccuped. I turned my eyes back to the road and merged onto I-5 southbound. Figured maybe the battery was dying or the display was going bad. Wouldn't be the first time something in this rig decided to quit on me. I made a mental note to check it later and kept my speed steady at 65. The GPS was still dark. Had been since I left the truck stop in Ridgefield. I didn't really need it anyway. I-5 straight south to Portland. Hard to get lost. Then the screen lit up. Bright blue. Full route display. Little arrow showing my position on the freeway, and a big orange detour notification popping up in the corner. I glanced at it. The GPS was trying to reroute me. Wanted me to take the next exit in Kalama and cut east on some rural highway I'd never heard of. Said it would save me 11 minutes. I ignored it. The notification got bigger, filled half the screen, started flashing. Rerouting for optimal arrival time, it said in text at the bottom. Exit in 0.4 miles. I looked back at the road and stayed in my lane. The instructions had been real clear. Stay on I-5, no deviation. The exit for Kalama came up on my right. I didn't move over. The GPS screen went gray, just blank gray. No map, no arrow, no route. Like somebody had pulled the plug. Then it came back. Full display, normal route. No detour notification. The little arrow tracking my position southbound on I-5 right where I was supposed to be. I kept both hands on the wheel and didn't touch anything. Fog started rolling in about 10 minutes later. Low stuff. Clung to the road and the shoulders and the fields on either side of the freeway. Not thick enough to slow down for, but enough to cut visibility and make my headlights bounce back weird. I crossed the Lewis and Clark Bridge doing 60. The river was invisible below. Just fog and darkness and the faint glow of Longview off to the left. The bridge deck hummed under my tires. 4 lanes of empty freeway stretching ahead. My phone rang. I jumped a little. Didn't expect it. The Bluetooth picked it up automatically and the caller ID flashed on my dash screen. Unknown number. Same as before. Same as Frankie's first call. I hit the button on my steering wheel to answer. "Yeah," I said. "Emmett." The voice came through my speakers. Dispatcher cadence, fast and procedural. "Checking in on your timeline." It was Frankie. Had to be. Same rhythm, same clip delivery. But it didn't sound like him. I don't mean the connection was bad or the audio was cutting out. I mean the voice itself was wrong. Too flat, like somebody doing an impression of Frankie but missing something underneath. The tone was there, but the personality wasn't. "I'm on schedule," I said. Kept my eyes on the road. "Should hit Portland by 7 easy." "You'll need to arrive at 5:17, the voice said. I frowned. "You said 7. That's what we agreed." 5:17 a.m., the voice repeated. Same flat cadence. "4th and Gleason, northwest corner. Precision is required." That's an hour and 43 minutes earlier than... "Arriving early will be noticed," the voice said. "Arriving late will void payment. 5:17 a.m. exactly." The line went dead. I stared at my dash screen. Call ended. 0 minutes, 18 seconds. The fog pressed closer on both sides of the freeway. I checked my mirrors again. The trailer sat there in the glow of my running lights, sealed, quiet, tracking straight. I kept driving south. I tried to press the caller for what exactly would notice. Started to ask if it was cameras or people or what. Got about 3 words out before the line ended. Not a normal disconnect either. A hard click that sounded like a latch catching. Mechanical. Final. The kind of sound a door makes when it locks behind you. The Bluetooth screen showed no call history. Just the usual display with time and radio station. I checked anyway, scrolled through recent calls. Nothing. The unknown number from 2 minutes ago didn't exist in the log. I looked at the dash clock. 2:03 a.m. The fog kept getting thicker. Not dangerous yet, but close. I could see maybe 300 feet ahead, maybe less. The lines on the road looked faint, and the reflectors were doing most of the work. No other traffic. Just me and the sealed trailer and whatever was inside it that needed to arrive at exactly 5:17 in the morning. I did the math again. 130 miles to Portland, give or take. 3 hours if I kept it steady at 65. That put me there around 5 a.m., which left 17 minutes to kill somewhere without being noticed. Or I could slow down and stretch it out, drive at 50 and arrive exactly on time. Except the voice on the phone said precision was required. Not early, not late. 5:17. I adjusted my speed to 60. Figured I'd fine-tune it as I got closer. The heater was running low because I didn't want to burn more fuel than necessary, but my hands were starting to go numb on the wheel. I turned it up 2 clicks. The vents rattled and warm air pushed against my face. Smelled like dust and old coffee. At 2:06, I heard knocking. Soft at first. Just a tap, tap, tap from somewhere behind me. Steady rhythm, patient. Like fingers against a wall. Not frantic, not panicked, just deliberate. I reached for the hazard lights. Pure reflex. Something's wrong with the load, you pull over and check it. That's the rule. That's what you do. My hand was halfway to the button when I froze. The instructions were still in my jacket pocket, but I didn't need to read them again. I remembered every word. If knocking is heard from inside, acknowledge once by tapping the wall without speaking or opening doors. The knocking continued. Same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. My hand stayed suspended over the hazard switch. I could feel my pulse in my wrist, could hear it in my ears, competing with the knocking. This was the moment where I should have pulled over, should have called someone, should have done literally anything except follow instructions written on a piece of paper by someone I'd never met for a job that paid too much. But I thought about Ricky, thought about $8,000 by Friday, thought about 12 days until surgery and Ashlyn's texts and the way my account balance hadn't moved in 3 days. I lowered my hand from the hazard switch. The knocking kept going, patient, waiting. I reached over and rapped my knuckles once against the back wall of the cab, right where it met the sleeper. One firm knock. The knocking stopped, just like that. Instant. Like someone had flipped a switch. I kept my hand against the wall for a few seconds, feeling the vibration of the road through the metal. Waited to see if it would start again. It didn't. I put both hands back on the wheel and checked my speed. 58. I brought it back up to 60. The silence afterward felt intentional. Not just absence of sound, more like a decision. Like whatever was back there had gotten what it wanted and didn't need anything else right now. I kept my eyes on the road, didn't look in the mirrors, didn't want to see the trailer. Just focused on the white lines and the fog and the distance markers passing on my right. A sign for Kelso appeared out of the mist. 12 miles. My phone sat in the cup holder, still no signal. I'd checked it twice since the call ended, and both times it showed 0 bars. Emergency calls only. I thought about trying anyway. Thought about dialing 911 and telling them I had a sealed trailer with something alive inside it and instructions that told me not to open the doors. Thought about how that conversation would go. Thought about them pulling me over and opening it and finding nothing, or finding something worse. Thought about losing $2,000 and Ricky's surgery getting pushed back 6 months or a year. I kept driving. South of Kelso, the fog thinned out a little. Not much, but enough that I could see the median clearly. Enough to see the Washington State Patrol cruiser sitting there with its lights on. Just sitting. Engine running. Light bar lit up blue and red. Parked at an angle on the gravel strip between northbound and southbound lanes. I checked my speed. 61. Not great, but not terrible. I eased off the accelerator and brought it down to exactly 60. The cruiser pulled out, not fast, smooth and controlled, merging into my lane about a quarter mile behind me. I watched it in the driver's side mirror, tracked the lights getting brighter as it closed the distance. My gut dropped. Hands got clammy. I couldn't afford a ticket, couldn't afford the fine, couldn't afford the time, couldn't afford any conversation about what I was hauling or where I was going. The instructions said if stopped by law enforcement, provide only CDL and registration. Say nothing about the load. State only that I was carrying general cargo, non-hazardous, under private contract. But the instructions also said stay on I-5 with no deviation. And pulling over was definitely a deviation. The cruiser got closer, maybe 50 feet back now, sitting right on my tail with lights spinning. Then the siren kicked on, short blast, then steady, loud enough I could hear it through the cab walls. The officer hit the spotlight, aimed it at my trailer, then at my cab. The light flooded my mirrors and I had to squint against the glare. I saw the motion in my peripheral vision. The officer waving me toward the shoulder. Clear signal. Pull over. Now. I should have done it. I know that. You don't run from cops. You don't ignore a traffic stop. That's how you turn a warning into an arrest. That's how you lose your CDL and your livelihood and any chance of paying for your kid's surgery. But the instructions were clear. No deviation. And the voice on the phone had been clear too. Precision required. 5:17 exactly. Early will be noticed. Late voids payment. I kept my hands locked on the wheel and my foot steady on the accelerator, 60 miles per hour, staying in my lane. The siren got louder. The lights kept spinning. The officer waved again, more insistent this time. I didn't pull over. Worst choice I'd made in years, probably. Maybe ever, but I made it anyway. My chest felt tight. My hands were shaking enough that the wheel vibrated under my grip. I counted my breaths. In for 4, out for 4. Tried to keep them steady. The cruiser stayed on me for what felt like 10 minutes, but was probably closer to 1. Siren blaring. Lights flashing. Close enough I could see the push bar on the front bumper in my mirror. Then the lights went dark. Just shut off. Siren cut out mid-wail, and the light bar went black. I kept watching the mirror. The vehicle was still there, but something looked wrong. Shape was off. In the fog and darkness, it didn't look like a patrol cruiser anymore. Looked more like a dark sedan, low profile. No light bar on the roof. No plates either, from what I could see. The front bumper was smooth, empty. I blinked hard and checked again. The sedan was gone, just vanished into the fog. In its place were headlights, low ones, too low. Hovering at the wrong height, maybe 3 feet off the ground. They sat there for a few seconds, keeping pace with me, not closing the distance, not falling back, just watching. Then they slipped away too, faded into the mist and disappeared. I checked all my mirrors. Driver's side, passenger side, the little convex ones mounted on the hood. Nothing. Just fog and road and the faint glow of my own running lights reflecting off the white line. I was alone again. I kept driving. I saw the love sign about 3 miles out and took the exit without thinking about it. The lot was bright. Fluorescent lights on tall poles washing everything in that flat white glow. Maybe 40 rigs parked in rows, engines running, APUs humming. Normal. That's what I needed. Something normal to grab onto. I rolled through the entrance at maybe 15 miles per hour and aimed for the fuel island. My gauge was still sitting at a quarter tank, and I didn't know if my card would clear, but I figured I'd try. Get fuel, get coffee, use the restroom. 10 minutes. Then back on I-5 with enough time to make the 5:17 deadline. I pulled into the outer lane and stopped behind a blue Freightliner that was already pumping. Put the tractor in neutral, set the brake. That's when I saw him. A guy in a high-vis vest standing near the building entrance, maybe 50 feet away, staring straight at me, not looking around the lot or checking his phone, just staring. I looked away, checked my mirrors. The trailer sat quiet behind me, white paint glowing under the lot lights, dot tape clean on the door seams. No drips on the pavement, no shimmer of fluid pooling underneath. When I looked back, the guy was walking toward me, fast. Not running, but moving with purpose. One hand raised, waving me down, the other pointing at my trailer. I cracked the window 2 inches. He reached my door and stopped, breathing hard. Greasy black hair under a security cap, narrow green eyes, pale skin with that look people get when they work nights for too long. The vest had "Love Security" printed across the chest in reflective letters. "You need to shut it down," he said. His voice was low, urgent. He kept glancing at the trailer, then back at me. "What's the problem?" I said. "Your trailer." He pointed again. "It's leaking." I looked in the passenger mirror. Nothing. No wet pavement, no puddle forming, no sheen under the sodium lights. "Where?" I said. "Rear axle, driver side. I saw it when you came in." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You need to park it now. Back corner of the lot, away from the pumps." I watched his face. He looked panicked. Real panic. Not the fake kind you see when someone's trying to sell you something or get you to move. But I didn't see any leak. "Let me check," I said. I opened the door and climbed down, boots hitting pavement. The air smelled like diesel and fryer grease from the restaurant inside. cold enough that my breath fogged. The security guard stepped back, giving me space but staying close, watching. I walked along the driver's side of the trailer, eyes on the pavement, checking for drip lines, wet spots, anything. Nothing. The asphalt was dry, stained with old oil and coolant from 100 other trucks, but dry. No fresh fluid, no sheen catching the light. I crouched near the rear axle where he'd pointed, ran my hand under the frame, came away clean. I wiped my palm on my jeans anyway and stood. "I don't see anything," I said. He was right behind me, too close. I took a half step back. "It's intermittent," he said. "I saw it, trust me." I looked at him, at his face, at the way his eyes kept flicking to the trailer doors, then to the cab, then back to me. He stared at me like he already knew me. Not recognized. Knew. That feeling when someone's seen your picture or heard your name and they're waiting for you to catch up. "I need to keep moving," I said. I walked back toward the cab. He followed. "You can't," he said. "Not with a leak. Dot regs, you know that." I stopped at the driver door and turned. "There's no leak. I'm telling you I saw it, and I'm telling you there's nothing there." He stepped closer again. His hand came up reaching for my arm, and I pulled back before he made contact. "Just park it," he said. 20 minutes, let me call someone to look at it." 20 minutes. I thought about the timeline. The delivery at 5:17. Exactly. Not early, not late. It was 3:41 now. I had 96 minutes and maybe 40 miles left. 20 minutes would put me at 4:01. Still enough time. But I didn't trust it. I didn't trust him. "I'm good," I said. I grabbed the door handle and pulled myself up into the cab. Shut the door. Locked it. Through the window, I saw his face change. The panic melted, just fell away, and he smiled, wide, practiced. The kind of smile you see on someone working customer service who's been told to be friendly no matter what. It didn't match. Didn't match the urgency from 10 seconds before. Didn't match the way he'd been pointing at the trailer like it was about to explode. That smile pushed me back onto pure instinct. I released the brake, shifted into first, rolled forward. In the mirror, I saw him standing there, still smiling, watching me pull away from the fuel island without pumping a single gallon. I didn't fuel, didn't get coffee, didn't use the restroom. I just drove out of the lot, back onto the access road, onto the on-ramp, back to I-5 southbound at 60 miles per hour. Motion over certainty. That's what it was. Stopping felt worse than moving. 5 miles later, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down. Text from Ashlyn. I waited until I passed a semi hauling a flatbed of lumber, then picked up the phone. The message was a photo. Ricky's wrist, pale skin, a white hospital bracelet with his name printed in black letters. Simmons Ricky. Birth date below it. Patient ID number. The text underneath said, "Deposit deadline moved to Thursday morning. They called an hour ago. If we don't have it by 9 a.m., they're bumping him to the next opening." I stared at the photo, at his wrist, at the bracelet that looked too big on him. Thursday morning. That was tomorrow. Not Friday. Tomorrow. I put the phone back in the cup holder, checked my speed, 62. I eased off the gas until it dropped back to 60. Another buzz. I didn't pick it up right away. Waited maybe 30 seconds. Then looked. Unknown number. The message said, "Hey Rocket, you're almost to Portland. Why don't you turn around? Exit 11's coming up. You could be home before breakfast." Rocket. That was Ricky's nickname for me. Something he started calling me when he was 5 because I told him I used to want to be an astronaut. Nobody else called me that. Not Ashlyn. Not anyone. I read it again. Exit 11's coming up. I looked at the road. At the green sign ahead showing exit 11 in 2 miles, the text continued. I know you're trying. I know it's hard. But that trailer's not worth it. You've got the scuff on the passenger door, the one from that loading dock in Tacoma last year. I can see it from here. I looked at the passenger door, at the scrape along the bottom edge where I'd clipped a metal post backing into a tight dock, maybe 8 inches long, bare metal showing through white paint. Someone was watching me, right now. I checked all 3 mirrors. The road behind me was empty except for a pair of headlights maybe half a mile back. Nothing close, nothing alongside. Another buzz. Exit 11. Take it. Go see Ricky. Forget the trailer. Forget the money. Just go home. I didn't respond. Didn't type anything back. Didn't save the number. Didn't screenshot the messages. I just kept driving. Exit 11 appeared on the right. The off-ramp curved away into darkness. I stayed in my lane. The phone buzzed twice more in the next minute. I didn't look. Stopping felt like letting the situation rewrite itself, like giving something permission to change the rules again. So I didn't stop. I kept my foot steady, hands locked on the wheel, eyes on the white line pulling me forward through the dark. I came around a long curve near what the GPS said was North Portland Harbor and saw taillights ahead, red dots in the fog. Nothing weird about that, except the rig looked familiar. I eased off the throttle and let the distance close a little. White tractor, dry van, same height, same length. The truck drifted left, crossed the lane line by maybe 6 inches, then drifted back. Not weaving exactly, more like the driver couldn't quite tell where the lane was. I got closer. The mud flap on the driver's side rear had a bent bracket, same angle as mine, same side. My chest went cold. I checked my speed. 58. The truck ahead was doing maybe 55. I was gaining on it slow but steady. The fog thinned for a second and I saw the decals on the back doors, blue and white. Same contractor logo I had on mine. I looked down at my hands on the wheel, looked back up. The truck was still there, still drifting, still matching. There's a thing I heard once. Probably from another driver at a fuel island, or maybe from my old man before he quit the road. If you see your own vehicle while you're driving it, you're supposed to close your eyes and count to 5. Don't look at it. Don't follow it. Just close your eyes and let it pass. I didn't believe in that stuff, but my hands were shaking and the truck ahead had my exact bent mudflap bracket, and I couldn't think of a single logical reason why that would be true. I let go of the wheel with my right hand and pressed my palm against my thigh to stop the shaking. It didn't help. I put the hand back. The dashboard clock said 3:33 a.m. The truck ahead drifted left again. This time it stayed there, half in my lane, half in the next. No brake lights, no turn signal, just drifting. I thought about Ricky's wrist in that hospital bracelet. I thought about the $8,000. I thought about the knock I'd answered with one tap and the thing in the trailer that had gone quiet after. Then I closed my eyes. I kept my hands exactly where they were, 10 and 2. I could feel the wheel pulling just slightly to the right the way it always did around 55 miles per hour. I corrected without thinking. Muscle memory. I'd driven this rig for 4 years and I knew how it felt. I counted. 1, 2, 3. The road under me stayed smooth. No vibration from the shoulder rumble strips. No drift. 4, 5. I opened my eyes. The road was empty. Just fog and asphalt and the white line down the middle reflecting my headlights back at me. I checked all 3 mirrors. Nothing. I exhaled and my breath came out shaky. My hands were still locked on the wheel and I had to consciously relax my grip. My fingers ached. The trailer shuddered behind me. Not a bump in the road. Not a gust of wind. It felt like weight shifting. Like someone stood up in the back and walked 3 steps to the left, then stopped. I checked the mirrors again. The trailer looked normal, straight, tracking clean. but I felt it. A tug to the left for maybe 2 seconds, then it settled. I thought about the knocking, about the single tap I'd given back. I kept my eyes forward and my speed at 60, and I didn't let myself think about what might be in there or why it had moved right after I closed my eyes. The GPS said I had 12 miles to the 4th and Gleason coordinates. The clock said 3:37 a.m. I was going to be early, way too early. The voice on the phone had said 5:17 exactly. Arriving early would be noticed. I slowed to 50. The exit into southeast Portland came up at 3:51. I took it smooth, no sudden braking, and followed the GPS through a neighborhood with narrow streets and parked cars on both sides. Old craftsman houses, a few apartment buildings with peeling paint. No lights on anywhere except for porch lamps and the occasional blue flicker of a TV through a window. The GPS directed me left onto a street called Ankeny, then right onto something called Southeast 9th. The road opened up a little, fewer cars, wider lanes. At 4:48, the GPS said I'd arrived. I slowed and looked. The building sat on a corner lot behind a chain-link fence with a busted latch. It was 2 stories, old brick, with narrow windows on the 2nd floor and a wider entrance on the 1st. The windows were dark, except for one on the ground level near the back. Yellow light. Faint. There was a sign near the door, but I couldn't read it from the street. The place looked like it used to be something else. The roofline had a weird peak in the middle, and the entrance had double doors with tall, narrow windows on either side. A funeral home, maybe. Or a church. I pulled forward 20 feet and saw a dumpster enclosure with a rolling gate standing open. The dumpster was gone, but the concrete pad was still there. I checked the clock. 4:51 a.m. The delivery instructions said 4th and Gleason, northwest corner, 5:17 a.m. Exactly. I looked at the GPS again. This wasn't 4th and Gleason. This was Southeast 9th and Ankeny. I scrolled back through the route. The GPS had the right destination plugged in, 4th and Gleason, northwest Portland. But it had taken me here instead. I sat there with the engine idling and looked at the building again. The light in the back window didn't move. No shadows, no shapes. I put the transmission in first and rolled forward, took the next right and circled the block. I'd find 4th and Gleason myself. I still had time. 26 minutes. At 4:59, I came around the same corner onto Southeast 9th and saw the building again. Same yellow light, same open dumpster gate. I checked the GPS. It showed me on the correct route to 4th and Gleason, but the street sign outside my window said Southeast 9th. I turned left instead of right this time. Drove 3 blocks, turned left again. Came back around. 5:02 a.m. I was early. Too early. The voice had said 5:17 exactly. Arriving early would be noticed. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I didn't want to find out. I kept driving, looped the block again, past a closed coffee shop with chairs stacked on tables inside, past a corner market with bars on the windows, past a bus stop with a bench that had someone sleeping on it under a blanket. 5:07. I turned onto Southeast 9th for the 3rd time and saw taillights ahead. They were stopped in the middle of the lane about 100 feet up. White truck, dry van, same height, same length. I slowed. The truck's brake lights were on. Bright red. It wasn't moving. I came closer. The mudflap bracket on the driver's side rear was bent at the same angle as mine. This time I didn't close my eyes. I stopped about 50 feet back and left my foot on the brake. The truck ahead just sat there. Engine running, lights on, no movement. I checked my side mirror. The street behind me was empty. I looked forward again and the truck was still there, blocking the lane, brake lights glowing. My Bluetooth screen lit up on the dash. No call coming in. Just the blue connected icon. Then I heard my own voice. It came through the speakers, a single knock. Knuckles on metal. The same sound I'd made 2 hours ago when I rapped the back wall of the cab. The recording lasted maybe 1 second. Then it cut off. The trailer behind me answered. One knock. Hard. Loud enough that I felt it through the seat. It wasn't the same patient tapping from before. This was different. Angry. Deliberate. Like I'd done something wrong just by looking. I stared at the truck ahead with its red brake lights and bent mudflap bracket, and my hands went numb on the wheel. The knock didn't come again, but I could feel it. The weight in the trailer. The thing that had moved when I closed my eyes. The thing that had been quiet until now. It wasn't quiet anymore. The clock hit 5:17. I turned in. The brick building sat right there on the corner, exactly where the GPS had kept bringing me no matter which way I looped. The chain-link gate stood wide open now. I didn't remember it being open before. Maybe it was. Maybe I just hadn't noticed. A man stood inside the gate on the concrete pad wearing a reflective jacket that caught my headlights. He held a clipboard in one hand and had the other raised, palm out, telling me to stop. I eased off the throttle and rolled forward at maybe 5 miles per hour, watching him. He looked maybe 50. Gray hair combed neat, pale blue eyes, thin mouth. His jacket had that dot orange-yellow stripe pattern, clean and squared off at the shoulders. He didn't move, just stood there with his hand up, watching me come. I stopped about 20 feet back and set the brake. The engine idled rough. My hands were still shaking from the knock in the trailer, from the truck ahead that had disappeared, from all of it. The man lowered his hand and pointed at the concrete pad behind him, then made a slow backing motion with both arms. Official. Practiced. I put it in reverse and started backing, watching my mirrors, lining up the trailer with the pad. He guided me with small hand signals. Left, right, straight, stop. When the trailer cleared the fence line, he chopped his hand across his throat. I stopped and set the brake again. He walked up to my door. I cracked the window 2 inches. Key fob, he said. His voice was flat, calm, like he was reading off a script. I stared at him. What? The key fob you were given, hand it over. I glanced at the cup holder. The black plastic fob sat there next to my phone, right where I'd left it after using it at the lumber yard. I need the cash first, I said. He didn't blink. That's not how this works. The dispatcher said cash on delivery. I delivered. I want the money. The fob, he repeated. No inflection, no impatience, just stating a fact. I shook my head. Cash first. That was the deal. He tilted his head slightly like he was considering something. Then he lowered the clipboard and tapped it once against his thigh. The trailer's the delivery, he said. Not the contents. The trailer itself. You hand over the fob, you walk away, you get paid. That's the arrangement. I felt my chest tighten. What's in the trailer? That's not your concern. It's been knocking. There's something in there. His face stayed blank. Completely flat. The fob. I looked past him at the building. The yellow light still glowed in the back window. The double doors at the front were closed. No one else around. Just him, standing there with his clipboard and his reflective jacket and his dead expression. No, I said. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because of Ricky. Maybe because I'd driven this far and ignored too much already and something in me finally snapped. Maybe because this guy's face looked wrong, too controlled, too empty. I pulled the door handle and climbed down. My legs felt stiff. I walked to the back of the cab and opened the storage compartment, pulled out the bolt cutters I kept for emergencies. They were heavy, maybe 3 feet long, with red rubber grips. The man, Dustin, I learned later, Dustin Noble, didn't move. Just watched me walk past him toward the trailer. Don't open it, he said, still flat, still calm. I ignored him. The bolt seal hung there on the door latch, same numbered seal I'd checked 3 times back at the lumber yard. The metal loop looked thin enough. I positioned the cutters, squeezed the handles, and the seal snapped clean. The doors swung open, fast, too fast, like something pushed from inside. I stepped back, bolt cutters still in my hands, and stared. Empty. The trailer was completely empty. No pallets, no cargo, no boxes or crates or anything I'd expected to see. Just a neat row of folding chairs, maybe 10 of them, lined up facing the front wall, evenly spaced. Metal frames, tan fabric seats, the kind you see in community centers or church basements. They looked new, clean. And on the floor, muddy footprints, a lot of them, crossing from the doors toward the front, overlapping, like multiple people had walked through. The prints were distinct, boot treads, shoe patterns, one set that looked like bare feet. They covered maybe half the floor space, concentrated near the chairs. Then they stopped. Right at the edge of the floor, near the front wall, the prints just ended, like whoever made them had stepped into open air and vanished. I stood there holding the bolt cutters, staring at those footprints, at the folding chairs arranged like a meeting had just finished and everyone had left. The knocking started again. Not from the trailer this time. From above me, from the cab roof. 3 deliberate knocks, hard and fast, right over my head. Close enough I felt the vibration in my skull. I spun around and looked up at the cab. The roof was flat, empty, nothing there. The knocking came again. Same spot, same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. I looked at Dustin. He was staring at me with that blank expression. But something had changed. His eyes looked different, wider, fixed on me in a way that made my skin crawl. He raised the clipboard slowly and pointed at me with one finger. Then he shook his head. Just once. Slow and deliberate. The meaning was clear. You made this impossible. You opened it. Now you're the replacement. I didn't think. I just moved. I slammed the trailer doors shut, threw the bolt cutters on the ground, and ran back to the cab. My hands fumbled with the door handle, got it open, hauled myself up into the seat. I released the brake, shoved it into first, and punched the throttle. The tractor lurched forward. The tires rolled over something. Dustin's clipboard, I think. And I heard it crack under the weight. I aimed for the street, for the open gate I'd backed through 30 seconds ago. The gate was closed. Solid. Chain link pulled tight across the opening, padlock hanging from the latch. I slammed the brakes. The tractor stopped maybe 10 feet from the fence. I sat there, breathing hard, staring at the closed gate, trying to figure out when it had shut, who had shut it, because Dustin was still standing back by the trailer and I hadn't seen anyone else. The knocking overhead stopped. Silence. I looked at the cup holder. The key fob sat there, black and small and useless. Or maybe not useless. I grabbed it and pressed the button. The gate rolled open, smooth, fast, like it had been waiting. I didn't wait to see if it would close again. I released the brake and drove straight through, tires hitting the street, trailer swinging wide behind me as I took the turn too fast. I didn't look back. The nearest precinct was on Southeast 12th, maybe 6 blocks away. I found it by following the signs, pulled into the lot, and parked crooked across 2 spaces. Inside, the desk officer was a woman maybe 35, dark hair in a bun, brown eyes that looked tired but alert. Her nameplate said Parker. I told her everything. The load, the lumberyard, the instructions, the knocking, the fake cop, the security guard at Love's, the GPS bringing me to the wrong address, the trailer full of chairs and muddy footprints, Dustin and his blank face and the gate closing and all of it. She listened without interrupting, took notes on a yellow pad, asked a few questions, times, locations, names I knew. When I finished, she looked at me for a long moment. "You want to go back and show me?" she asked. I nodded. We drove back in her patrol car, me in the passenger seat, her behind the wheel. She didn't use lights or siren, just regular street driving. The building was still there, the gate was open again, the concrete pad was empty. I stared at it. The trailer was right there, Parker got out and walked onto the pad, looking around. I followed. No trailer, no tractor, no Dustin. I walked to where I'd parked, where I'd backed the trailer in. The fifth wheel on my truck had been connected when I drove away. I'd felt the weight, heard it tracking behind me. Now the fifth wheel was bare, clean, like nothing had ever been hooked to it. "I don't understand," I said. "It was attached. I drove here with it." Parker crouched down, examining the pavement. Then she stood and pointed. A neat stack of $100 bills sat on the concrete, right where the trailer doors would have been, rubber band around them, 20 bills, crisp and new, $2,000. Exactly what Frankie had promised. I picked it up. The bills felt real. I counted them twice. Parker watched me, then looked around the lot again. "You said the dispatcher's name was Frankie Richards?" "Yeah." "You have a number for him?" I pulled out my phone, scrolled to recent calls. The unknown number from earlier was gone, no record of it. Just like before. "It was here," I said. "I swear it was here." Parker took my information, said she'd file a report, told me to call if I remembered anything else. I drove straight to Seattle Children's Hospital, got there at 8:43 in the morning, walked up to the billing desk and handed them the cash. They counted it, gave me a receipt, confirmed Ricky's surgery was still scheduled. Ashlyn met me in the hallway outside. She looked exhausted. "Where did you get the money?" "A load," I said. She didn't ask anything else. I lost my job 4 days later. The company said I'd violated protocol by taking an undocumented contract load, by failing to verify cargo, by cutting a seal without authorization. They were right. I didn't argue. I sold the truck the following week to a guy from Tacoma. Got less than it was worth, but I didn't care. I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. Couldn't stand the fifth wheel, the cab, the mirrors. I cut ties with Frankie's contractor. Didn't return calls, didn't answer texts. Eventually they stopped trying. Ricky's surgery went fine. He came home 2 weeks later, bracelet still on his wrist, looking pale, but better. I found work doing local deliveries. Daytime only. Box trucks, never semis. Never long haul. People asked why I quit. I told them I wanted to be home more. Wanted to see Ricky. That was true, mostly. But the real reason was simpler. I didn't trust empty trailers anymore. Didn't trust precise times, exact coordinates, voices that sounded almost right. Didn't trust the silence behind me when I drove at night. The weight that shifted when no cargo should have moved. The knocking that came from places nothing should have been. And I definitely didn't trust the feeling I still get sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep. That something's still waiting in a trailer somewhere with my name on the manifest and a delivery time I'll never make.